You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at Post Office Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for April 1st, 2025. It's not safe for work.
We are recording live from the Cornfield Resistance, where this week we're going to heed some of that good advice to liberals that's been flying around the internet from people like Gavin Newsom and Bill Maher and Chris Cuomo and various Never Trump focus groups. So we're going to substantially reform the way we talk, but we're still the professional left with driftglass and blue gal.
April Fool, driftglass.
April Fool. No, we're gonna start talking like we're supposed to talk. Because if we don't talk the way we're supposed to talk, the stupids will think we're insulting them by calling them stupid, and the racists.
Oh, that's right. We're not supposed to do that.
Don't call stupid stupid. Don't call racist racist.
So this is us before, right? We're going to do it before and after. This is before going full Newsom.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane! Everybody strap in! I'm about to open some fucking windows.
And this is us after going full Gavin Newsom.
Crisscross applesauce spoons and bowl. Notice my face. I am so sad, friends. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Is Signal a secure, encrypted military communication system? Yes or no? No. Are we supposed to use any group chat to coordinate airstrikes? No. That was a super sad choice.
By the way, that was TikToker and YouTube sensation Mrs. Frazzled, who's not only awesome at doing these, gentle parenting to Republican idiot videos, very good at those, highly recommended, but she's also a really sharp debater and well-researched defender of education policies. So let's just talk about language. Let's talk about language and its uses. The 40 to 50 years of linguistic shaping and conditioning that has made the Republican Party into the fascist mob it is today isn't the only conditioning that's been going on over that period, but let's start with them. Since the 1980s, as everyone knows, the true voice of the Republican Party has been hate radio, led by the late Rush Limbaugh, in partnership with the slash and burn politics of Newt Gingrich, which predates even the rise of Limbaugh and hate radio. It even predates the Reagan administration.
And this is from an Atlantic article by McKay Coppins from November 2018. Quote, "The man who broke politics. Newt Gingrich turned partisan battles into blood sport, wrecked Congress, and paved the way for Trump's rise. Now he's reveling in his achievements. There's something about Newt Gingrich that seems to capture the spirit of America, circa 2018. With his immense head and white mop of hair, his cold, boyish grin, and his high, raspy voice, he has the air of a late Empire Roman senator, a walking bundle of appetites and excesses and hubris and wit. In conversation, he toggles unnervingly between grandiose pronouncements about Western civilization and partisan cheap shots that seem tailored for cable news. It's a combination of self-righteousness and smallness, of pomposity and pettiness, that personifies the decadence of this era. Few figures in modern history have done more than Gingrich to lay the groundwork for Trump's rise." I think that is an absolutely true statement.
Yeah, irrefutable.
Yep. Continuing with McKay Coppins. During his 2 decades in Congress, he pioneered a style of partisan combat replete with name-calling, conspiracy theories, and strategic obstructionism that poisoned America's political culture and plunged Washington into permanent dysfunction. Gingrich's career can perhaps be best understood as a grand exercise in devolution, an effort to strip American politics of the civilizing traits it had developed over time and return it to its most primal essence, unquote.
Yeah.
And of course, those civilizing traits were between white men and other white men.
Politeness among the white guys.
Yeah, the whiteness and the protection of whiteness continued. And that's one of the things that Newt Gingrich really wanted to get back to. And we'll talk more about that in a minute.
Well, but as long as it was liberals he was targeting.
Yeah.
It was no holds barred. Liberals and all the enemies of bigots and imbeciles. In the article, Coppins went on to talk about the early Gingrich. This is before his successful campaign to get other Republicans to speak and act like him. This is the Gingrich of 1978, when he was a professor at Western Georgia College, running for Congress for the first time and addressing a gathering of college Republicans at a Holiday Inn near the Atlanta airport. This is what he told them, quote, "One of the great problems we have in the Republican Party is that we don't encourage you to be nasty. We encourage you to be neat, obedient, and loyal and faithful, and all those Boy Scout words, which would be great around the campfire, but are lousy in politics," unquote. For their party to succeed, Gingrich went on, the next generation of Republicans would have to learn to raise hell, to stop being so nice, to realize politics was, above all, a cutthroat war for power, and to start acting like it. And do the math. That was damn near half a century ago. So during the 1980s, Gingrich's bomb-throwing, slash-and-burn politics, slowly taking over the GOP, is accelerated by hooking up and being amplified all over the country, first by angry, liberal-bashing bigots on hate radio, and later by angry, liberal-bashing bigots on Fox News. From there, it's pretty much a straight line to Donald Trump. So, let's all play a little game, shall we? Let's guess who said the following and when they said it.
All right. Quote, "I regret and apologize for the fact that my comments have offended and upset my fellow conservatives. That was not my intent. I am also sorry to see that my comments in defense of our Republican leadership read much harsher than they actually were intended. But I recognize it is my responsibility to clarify my own comments," unquote. I thought that was Michael Steele.
Sure.
When I read that. And you might have guessed Lindsey Graham or Lil Marco Rubio. And you might have thought, okay, that happened in 2016, right? The 2016 presidential campaign. It could have happened just after Trump was inaugurated in 2017.
Sure.
It could have happened right before the midterms in 2018. You'd be wrong. You'd be wrong about all of that. The fight had been beaten out of them, beaten out of any independent-minded Republican long before that. If you said, well, hell, isn't this pretty much every Republican since Trump was inaugurated?
Yeah.
And today, you'd still be wrong. It's a good guess, but you'd be still wrong. This was now former Representative Phil Gingrich. If you remember Gingrich at all, and you probably don't, it's probably from when Stephen Colbert interviewed him on his Better Know a District segment. Colbert sarcastically asked, "The war in Iraq, great war or the greatest war?" Gingrich responded that it may be the greatest war. Well, that abject apology was Phil Gingrich begging the forgiveness of Rush Limbaugh back in 2009, the year Barack Obama was inaugurated.
Huh. Weird that, huh?
Yeah. From Politico, the headline, "Gingrich apologizes over Limbaugh." Quote, "Representative Phil Gingrich, Republican of Georgia, apologized Wednesday to, quote, my fellow conservatives, unquote, for comments critical of talk radio host Rush Limbaugh, saying he sees eye to eye with Limbaugh, and that his remarks defending House Republican leadership came across more harshly than intended. He also took issue with a headline on a Politico story about his comments, saying he never told Limbaugh to back off, as the headline read. And you got to remember, this is when Obama was trying to put the economy back together.
Oh, this was literally January of 2009.
Yeah.
He had just been inaugurated.
And Limbaugh was going full racist.
Oh, absolutely. From day one. Before day one.
From day one.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Gingrich said he issued the statement because of, this is so funny. I mean, to me, this is funny. Because of a high volume of calls and correspondence to his office. Oh, is that all it was? Just a high volume of calls and correspondence. Yeah.
What a nice way to say death threats, you know?
Death threats and hate mail. Yes. Yeah. After the Politico article, and wanted to speak directly to grassroots conservatives. He means the online mob, right? Mm-hmm. Let me assure you, I am one of you. Please don't kill me.
Please don't Mike Pence me.
No, he didn't say that. But let me assure you, I am one of you. I believe I was sent to Washington to fight for and defend our traditional values of smaller government, lower taxes, a strong national defense, and the lives of the unborn. As long as I am in Congress, I will continue to fight for and defend our sacred values. I have actively opposed every bailout, every rebate check, every so-called stimulus. And on many of these things, I see eye to eye with Rush Limbaugh. Unquote. Please don't kill me.
Please.
Please don't primary me. Please don't make my staff members quit.
and notice who he's apologizing to. He's not apologizing to the former president of the United States, the soon-to-be, the recently departed head of the Republican Party at the time, George Bush. He wasn't apologizing to Cheney. He was apologizing to Rush Limbaugh because Rush Limbaugh was fucking running the Republican Party. And this is January of 2009. This is the month Barack Obama was inaugurated. And of course, longtime listeners will remember that it was the chairman of the Republican Party himself. Yes, Mr. Michael Steele, the guy the Republican Party's hired because they needed a black man to stand up front and pretend they weren't racist, and Michael Steele was perfectly happy to take that job. It was Michael Steele who was in line right behind Gingrich, groveling to Rush Limbaugh and kissing his ass.
Yep.
This is from Politico in March of 2009. What an eventful couple of months, Blue Gal. The headline, Steele to Rush, I'm sorry. Quote, Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Steele says he has reached out to Rush Limbaugh to tell him he meant no offense when he referred to the popular conservative radio host as an entertainer whose show can be incendiary. My intent was not to go after Rush. I have enormous respect for Rush Limbaugh, Steele said in a telephone interview. I was maybe a little bit inarticulate. There was no attempt on my part to diminish his voice or his leadership. Yeah, because he's the leader of the goddamn party. He could snuff out Michael Steele's career with 3 shows on the radio. And Michael Steele fucking well knows it. So if you do the math, you'll notice all of this was precipitated by Rush Limbaugh's relentless, unhinged, racist attacks on America's newly elected Democratic President, Barack Obama, who was black and still is, to my knowledge. And all of it was happening right out in the open. That's the thing. None of this was a big secret. None of this was in hiding. It was all out in the open in headlines. So my question, often asked of our Never Trump allies, but never answered by any of them, is so very simple. If you thought this behavior was so odious and so intolerable when Trump did it that you either left or got run out of your own party, why was it acceptable to you when Gingrich and all of his imitators and Limbaugh and all of his imitators were doing it long before Trump ever showed up? Really simple question. I would appreciate some Never Trumper reaching back out to me and explaining to me how the fuck you missed it. Because it was all in the papers, and you say now you hate this shit. Why weren't you organized like you are now? Why weren't you raising money to mount multi-million-dollar Lincoln Project-style ad campaigns to take down Rush Limbaugh, Hate Radio, and Fox News, who were the source of this poison? Instead of pouring all your energies into denying there was anything wrong with the GOP and liberals are the real danger, instead of trying to cut the cancer out that was consuming your party, why were people like Amanda Carpenter and Rick Wilson and Charlie Sykes and Bill Kristol and David Brooks and David French and on and on and on and on working on behalf of that cancer, trying to spread it as fast as possible to more people more quickly in every venue that would give them a seat and a microphone? Why?
That's right. That's right. And the answer is simple. Right there in the Politico article about Gingrich, quote, Gingrich said he issued a statement because of a high volume of calls and correspondence to his office. You didn't speak out until it was far too late because of the base of your own party. Because you knew you had helped make a monster, and that monster was on the side of the bigots and bomb throwers. And because without that mob, you'd never win another election. And there would never be another payday. Meanwhile, over on our side of the aisle, where there is no liberal media, and Democrats have to rely on the largesse of the legacy media to tell anyone anything. What was the legacy media demanding of Democrats? Why aren't you being more bipartisan? Why aren't you reaching out more? Why won't Obama lead?
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget that it was like April and May of 2009, ABC News This Week, the Sunday show with George Stephanopoulos, had Michelle Malkin on as part of the panel to push her book about how corrupt and non-transparent the Obama administration was.
Right.
They'd been in office for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a book out about, Barack Obama's administration, never been a more corrupt administration in the history of the presidency. And when did I want to know when she signed the contract to write that book.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet it was before the election.
When she knew they were going to lose.
When she knew they were going to lose. And she was ready to write a attack dog book against Obama for money.
Before he had figured out where the bathrooms are in the White House.
And who had the money to hire an agent to get her book and her little butt onto ABC News This Week, which is supposed to be legacy media. Those are the diamonds in the crown of the network news business, these Sunday shows. And it was embarrassing. I remember her talking about, trying to do the line in April of 2009 that nobody wants to work.
Right. That during the recession,
the entire panel looking at her like, there are 400 people in line for 3 firefighter jobs in Miami. Everybody wants to work. Nobody can find a job.
No, they were all teed up and ready to do the Newt Gingrich thing. Attack.
Right.
And the legacy media was lined up to do the legacy media thing, which was both sides have a point here.
Right.
Really
so we're going to have Michelle Malkin on our Sunday show.
Yeah.
So for Democrats, the media tone police are always out in such force, you'd think they were standing shoulder to shoulder guarding a Tesla dealership.
Yeah, always. I've been writing on my...
They're doing, assisted living in the White House for Donald Trump these days.
You and I have collectively, between us, been blogging for 40 years.
Yeah.
And
happy blogiversary this week, Driftglass.
Thank you, Blue Gal.
And by the way, those of you who are concerned about donating to Driftglass's fundraiser at his blog, because I might not get any of the money, not to worry.
Don't worry about that. Don't you worry. If that's your major concern,
if that's your concern that you want it to go to both of us, I got news for you. It goes to both of us.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. That's our secret. That's our terrible secret. No,
anyway, it helps run our household. Let's just put it that way.
But we've been writing about the absolute tone policing. The joke that I was telling in 2006 about if Dick Cheney were caught on the White House lawn throwing burning kittens at homeless veterans. What are the first 3 words out of Cokie Roberts' mouth?
Right.
But the
ABC
Democrats.
News This Week, Cokie Roberts.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the Democrats. We have been talking about this for decades, literally decades, because that's how the Republicans hacked the system. They figured out no matter how awful they are, the legacy media will not take them to task for it, period, because they have a megaphone. They can shout back. So they'll turn around and start slapping around Democrats for not accommodating Republicans more. And that's the business model of way too many people who make their money in the legacy media. Now, do you remember this?
Even McKay Coppins, and I thought that was a good Atlantic article that you put in our notes. Thank you for doing that. But even he does, the disruption and chaos in Washington.
In Washington, it's not Washington.
As if it's some sort of,
everybody
air pollution that affects everybody equally.
It's a big key party. And everybody's just swinging with everybody else, and they're all just doing the dirty with each other.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember this? This is from Al Jazeera, June 14th, 2005. Quote, U.S. Senator stands by Nazi remark. A U.S. Senator has refused to apologize for comparing the actions of U.S. soldiers at Guantanamo Bay to those of Nazis, while others have decried or defended the mandate and method used to hold prisoners there, unquote. That senator was our Senator Dick Durbin. And here's actually what he said, quote, if I read this to you and did not tell you that it was an FBI agent describing what Americans had done to prisoners in their control, you would most certainly believe this must have been done by the Nazis, Soviets in their gulags, or some mad regime, Pol Pot or others, that had no concern for human beings, unquote. And, now that Trump has overtaken Bush in the torture department, a whole bunch of people who were wetting their pants over that are perfectly happy to call Trump a fascist. Our new Never Trump friends who are all behind Bush, all love Bush, are like fascist, Hitler, Hitler, fascist, Hitler, fascist. Like, where the fuck were you when this thing was coming on, when it was in its infancy? So all of this is 100% accurate.
Rick Wilson's doing Hitler all the time now. Yeah.
And this was 100% accurate. Durbin was quite accurate, and for which he was immediately slammed from all sides. Dick Durbin hates the troops, and Dick Durbin hated America. And Republicans pounded away, and he was abandoned by many fellow Democrats as well.
And so 3 days later, from CBS News, Senator sorry for Gitmo remarks. Now at Gitmo, they were force-feeding people.
Yeah.
They were torturing people.
Lots of people. And we found out that it was happening all over the place. It was policy of the Bush administration to torture people.
Right. Quote, under fire from Republicans and some fellow Democrats, Senator Dick Durbin apologized Tuesday for comparing American interrogators at Gitmo prison camp to Nazis and other historically infamous figures. Some may believe that my remarks crossed the line, the Illinois Democrat said. To them, I extend my heartfelt apologies. His voice quaking and tears welling in his eyes, the number 2 Democrat in the Senate also apologized to any soldiers who felt insulted by his remarks. They're the best. I never, ever intended any disrespect for them, he said, unquote. And you'd think that him apologizing would be the end of it then. Right. But it didn't matter because Republicans had an issue. So for a few days after Durbin's apology, who do we find writing a lengthy article for the American Enterprise Institute calling Durbin despicable and demanding that the Senate censure him? Hey, it's Newt Gingrich.
Hey, look at that.
Now, just remember, Newt had been forced to resign as House Speaker for stooping his 6-year mistress while calling Clinton everything but a son of God.
And
also kiting checks at the post office and, whatever. He was corrupt. And he'd been forced to resign his speakership in disgrace nearly a decade earlier, but who was still very active in Republican leadership and a frequent guest where? On the Sunday shows.
On those Sunday shows.
Because he would get in the car when they sent a car for him, come to the studio and speak in complete sentences.
And say quotable.
And knew what sound bites were and when to stop talking for commercials.
And say quotable, hateful things that filled the air.
Well, and he had a trick that I uncovered, that I sussed out.
Right.
Which is a noun and a verb. Obama did it.
Right.
So he would read the paper that morning, and it didn't matter what it was. It could be a knifing in Paris. Somebody attacked a group with a knife in Paris. This is Obama's fault.
Right.
And Newt Gingrich blames was the thing you Googled. Now, he's cleaned that up a little bit. He's cleaned up the internet. And some of those news sites have just expired. But it used to be you could just Google Newt Gingrich blames, and there'd be headline after headline after headline of Newt Gingrich blames Obama for a Chicago shooting. Newt Gingrich blames Obama for a mother killing her children.
Right.
That's just liberal culture on parade.
If this woman drowned her children, that's just liberal. That's just liberal culture.
Liberals.
Yeah,
that's liberals. And so this was his shtick to get on the news, because the news would have that story, and Newt Gingrich would be ready to talk about that story.
And that's one half of the pincer move. Any bad thing that happens in the world, blame Obama.
Yeah.
The other half of the pincer movement, any horrific thing a specific Republican does, Republican policy does, turn to the New York Times and you'll find, well, it's really both sides, Blue Gal. It really is both sides. It really is both sides. So the centrists now can say, well, I don't know who's to blame for anything. Well, Republicans are just loving this shit because every time anything happens in the world anywhere, it's either both sides are to blame if it's a Republican who did it, or it's Obama. Obama won't lead. Obama's too diffident. Obama's, too uppity, because that's the word they wanted to use so bad. Or it's this tan suit, or it's the poupon, the gray poupon.
Yep. And they're doing it with Jasmine Crockett and Cory Booker today. It's the same thing. So, in fact, in 2009, despite he had not held a position in government for over a decade, but Gingrich would turn out to be the most single frequent guest on Meet the Press every Sunday.
Yep.
You could count on Gingrich to be there to read a news story that was in the news that week and blame Democrats.
Yeah. Oh, and there was also the Gingrich rules, which,
Yep.
I sussed out sort of a hidden hack, a hidden feature,
Yeah.
which was Newt Gingrich goes out in public somewhere and says something horrifically racist. A horrible lie, a despicable scumbag, typical Gingrich thing to do. Count on your fingers the number of days until Meet the Press comes on, and there he is. David Gregory now welcomes back former Speaker Newt Gingrich, and he rehabs his reputation. He treats him respectfully. He asks him all kinds of softball questions and never fucking mentions once the horrible thing Gingrich just did.
That Newt
David
Gingrich
Gregory
called Barack Obama, having a Kenyan mindset,
right? So
a colonial African mindset. Yeah,
if you're hacked off that Newt Gingrich still exists in the public eye, David Gregory made it his personal mission to rehabilitate this asshole's reputation every time he shit the bed. And
every
he shit the
30
bed about
days.
once every, like clockwork.
He'd have a timeout for 30 days, and you could just count it. Yeah. All right. So after decades of Gingrich politics and Limbaugh media, Republicans have learned to always be on the attack, to value their loudest, most vicious voices, and to never apologize for anything. Gingrich never apologized for his racist shit. He just waited him out. And who learned from that? Trump learned from that.
They all learned from that. They all do it now.
In fact, you might remember back in 2011 when Gingrich was sniffing around another run for president.
Uh-huh.
And, he was on the stage. He was on the debate stage for a couple times, too. He went so far as to blame his super awesome patriotism and love of country for the adultery, the 6-year affair he had with Callista.
Mm-hmm.
6 years later, all of a sudden Callista is his wife, and she would be appointed Trump's ambassador to the Vatican.
Yeah. It pays off.
Dream job.
It pays off. It works for them. They have built a machine over there that values lying, hatred, viciousness, attack, racism. As long as you're pouring fire on us, you and me, Blue Gal, they'll excuse anything. Now, there is some promising news breaking today. It's happening today. I believe Cory Booker just sat down, having broke Strom Thurmond's record. Which for a filibuster. This is, the shovel your driveway kumbaya senator from New Jersey. That guy just
He did shovel driveways and bring diapers during snowstorms.
He did.
Yes,
he seemed
did.
like a very nice man and a very good neighbor and a really cheerful person to have at the barbecue. And he held the Senate floor to filibuster against hate for 25 plus hours, I think, which is awesome. That is no notes. That's awesome. And several Democratic senators helped him by asking him lengthy questions, which gave him a chance for a breather and to stretch his legs. I think Amy Klobuchar stepped in and did something long, gave him a long bit of relief, which was also awesome. And plus, this is exactly what we've been asking our elected Democrats to do. He has no power to stop forever the clock on Republican racism and their horrible programs and Donald Trump's fascism. But he stood up and he tried. And he tried for a long time. And he spoke the truth, and he did it for all day. And it grabbed a headline away from these assholes, and that's a good thing.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
I have nothing but praise for the effort. But honestly, Cory Booker, you exhaust me sometimes. You really kind of exhaust me because all the good you do, and you do a lot of good, and I'm very impressed. I hate to break it to you, the age of Obama is over. That's over. The age of there are blue states and red states, but not all purple states. That's over. And you are now a relic of a time that has gone by. You don't have to be. You showed today that you can stand up for 25 hours and kick ass. But this was Cory Booker a month ago. But it could have been Cory Booker a decade ago. Quote, there are things that have nothing to do with left or right. They're just wrong. We must preserve our democratic norms and traditions. We must fight to protect people and fundamental rights that are now under assault, unquote. That's nothing wrong with that, except it has everything to do with left or right, Cory, and you know it. In your bones, you know it. This is Cory Booker mid-filibuster today.
But this is not a partisan moment. It is a moral moment. This is not a left or right moment. It is a right or wrong moment.
And this reaction has been like hardwired into far too many Democrats and legacy media people for far too long.
If I can just interrupt for a minute, we need less Cory Booker and more of the Tennessee Three.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or if Cory Booker can just get over this whole purple state, we're all together, let's join hands. All you're ever going to get from Republicans when you extend a hand, which Barack Obama learned over 8 years is a bloody stump. It is never going to work. They perceive everything you value as a virtue, everything you think of as something respectable and nice and kind. They see that as a weakness to be attacked. And they learned it from Newt Gingrich and learned it from Rush Limbaugh. And they're all Gingrich now. They're all Limbaugh now. So forget trying to reason with them. I know it's hard, but you got to do it. This fantasy that they all have that somehow the Republican Party isn't really the Republican Party, that we can all see with our own eyes, or that Trump and his goons and henchmen are just like a shell. And the real Republican Party, some imaginary good, bipartisan, West Wing Republican Party, is trapped in there somehow, like Robin the Boy Wonder in the Joker's Hard Times, Batman, episode 72.
Holy human pearls, Batman.
Correction, Robin. Pearls come from oysters. You came out of that clam.
Oh, I sure did. But how'd you get me out?
He pried the clam open with his bare hands, and then he unchained me.
How'd you break your chain, Batman?
Every man has his own unknown inner strength at a time of crisis, Robin. I'm sure had the situations been reversed, you would have found your strength. But now we must get to the Batcave.
But as all of us have known for a long time now, the problem is not Trump and a handful of henchmen. It's the whole Republican Party. I don't care if they're being blackmailed or not. This is their problem. And all of it, and all of its allies, all of its collaborators, all of its media, which means it all has to go. We don't want to hear pundits musing about strategies to get us back to the good old days of 2009 or 2011 or 2014, because those years were all mile markers that led us to today.
Absolutely.
I'd like to hear about ambitious plans to destroy the Republican Party, root and branch. Grandiose plans that are the mirror opposite of what Gingrich was plotting back when he was a Georgia college professor. And, I don't want to hear from never-Trumpers saying, maybe the Democratic Party needs to become two wings so that we never-Trumpers have a home.
Right.
Bullshit.
Yeah. They are so infected, still infected. Joe Walsh is the same way. Joe Walsh,
he's the one who said that. Yeah. He's the one.
And the problem is that Gingrich, Limbaugh wiring is still in their heads. It's stuck there like the Winter Soldier. And so when they get within a mile of actually saying maybe the Democrats are the better party and maybe I should join them, they freak out. And they go, I'm an independent. We need to establish a coalition where, we get to run things and you have to listen to us and do what we say. Yeah. Well, if you knew what you were doing and people should listen to what you say, how did you lose your party?
Yeah.
How did that happen? If you're the smart ones, how the fuck did your whole party get away from you and you're stuck on my couch now? How about you listen to us?
You're sleeping on my couch and wanting us to turn our home into a duplex so you have your own place.
Right. And that's not going to happen.
Couch surfing. Yeah.
Maybe just say thank you that there is a party out there that's capable of stopping Republicans and put all your effort.
And help us do it.
And help us do it without charging a bunch of gullible liberals millions of dollars to run ads that don't do a goddamn thing. How about you? You're all very good at getting Republicans elected. We don't need to get Republicans elected. Democrats are different than Republicans. So how about you help us do our democratic progressive thing better so that we reach more people by saying, you know what? Every time you open your goddamn mouth, Democrats are right about the party. And I was wrong. Stuart Stevens can do it. Bruce Bartlett can do it. The rest of you can fucking well do it.
We're not sure how these destroy all Republicans plans are going to look, but we definitely know that such plans would not look like this. This is from, and bless his heart, Harry J. Sisson. He's a 23-year-old TikTok maven. He's got 1.7 million followers. And according to his bio, he's known for his political advocacy on TikTok. And he supported Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He's been in the White House. He's met the president. Apparently, he's a bit of a cad when it comes to the ladies, but he's single and in his 20s and lives in Washington, D.C. So
good for him. Go for it, Harry. Go for it.
Here is what Harry had to say to his 1.7 million TikTok followers and his 165,000 YouTube followers and his 298,000 Twitter followers just a couple days ago. Quote, Governor Gavin Newsom is absolutely right here. We as Democrats have to stop the cancel culture crap. Step outside of our own bubbles and talk to the other side. The Republicans won. How do we change anything if we don't change? Unquote.
Look inside. Okay, Harry, first of all, David Brooks already has this job of saying maybe the Democrats should just reach out more, should just do more, should extend their hands more, should respect the feelings of people who wear fuck your feelings t-shirts.
Yeah.
Second, what the fuck cancel culture are you talking about? You know, we're not the people black bagging kids on the street and sending them off to gulags.
Right.
That's not us. We're not actually canceling people. You know who's canceling people? Republicans are canceling people. They're doing it right and left. They're doing it wholesale. Third, maybe you're too young to remember this, but, you know, stretch and read, because we tried this all before. It was called the Obama administration. You know, the guy who used to be Joe Biden's boss. The GOP reacted to the Obama administration, as this podcast has demonstrated, with an 8-year racist primal scream, total obstruction to everything that Obama tried to do, sabotage. Then they elected the king of the birthers, and they've only gotten more deranged since. So I don't know what you're thinking there, Harry, but that strategy ain't going to work, because you know what Obama tried to do? He tried to push the country just a little bit further in the direction of universal health care.
Using a Republican plan.
Using the Republican plan. He abandoned my progressive plan.
Yep.
He abandoned Bernie Sanders' progressive plan.
Yeah.
He went with the Republican plan because he thought, well, surely they're going to approve their own goddamn plan. And he approved it by like one vote against unified obstruction from those same Republicans.
Yep.
And some crippling backstabbing from a few Democrats like Joe Lieberman.
Right.
Now, that's what Obama tried to do. Democrats, that's the Democrat pot over here. Republicans, on the other hand, are cheering for black bagging students off the street and deporting them to foreign gulags for their political views or their tattoos or no reason at all. Republicans are cheering for pardoning the J6 terrorists and turning them loose on the rest of us. They're cheering for looting the country, sabotaging our defenses, driving away our allies, demolishing our economy, which Joe Biden worked his ass off to bring back from the last time Trump was in office, and fucked it all up. So, Harry, there is absolutely no version of talking to the other side when the other side is so blatantly violating everything America is supposed to stand for. And I'm hoping that Harry can maybe set aside some time to sit quietly and watch something like Mrs. Pettigrew Lives for a Day, which is an excellent movie, or a series called Babylon Berlin, or some other book or movie or TikTok video that deals with the interval between the two world wars, because that's what Obama was. That's what Biden was. These were short intermissions in a much longer war.
Yep. And speaking of failed legacy media, this from Variety, quote, White House Correspondents Association cancels plans to feature comedian Amber Ruffin at annual dinner. A new sign of the pressures being brought to bear on news organizations during President Donald Trump's second term. Gosh, it's pressures, driftglass. You know, these random pressures.
Who knows?
Are being brought. The timing of it is a little odd, but they're just pressures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our friend Tengrain got right to the point. Quote, what's so spectacular about this surrender is that convicted felon and career criminal, the Orange Clown, is not even going to be there to be upset by Ruffin's comedy set. And so they are obeying in advance. They are obeying in absentia. Can we just rename the thing the White House Codependents Association and bury it once and for all? No, we can't, because we have to give Peter Baker an award.
That's right. It's for the children.
By the way, we also give scholarships at this thing to make ourselves feel good.
It's for the children.
So it's for the kids.
You know, whip out the checkbook, write a check, and let this thing die.
And give it to them.
Because it's
don't hold the chicken dinner with the Kardashians getting photographed. Your event has a fucking red carpet. Fuck you.
You know who wouldn't be caught dead there? Mike Royko.
Right.
Oh, he'd be drunk in the back whipping whiskey bottles at people. But no, he would not be there as an honored guest. This is from Election Law Illegal Mark Elias, a hero to us all. Quote, the fact that the legacy media still holds this event is the single biggest advertising for pro-democracy independent media. Next time you hear them puzzle about declining ratings or readership, send them this post, unquote.
Yeah. Send them how they obeyed in advance.
Oh, yeah.
The reason you are becoming so irrelevant so quickly is because you're caving to fascism.
So easily.
So you do not deserve the protections of the First Amendment. You have not earned them as actual news organization. Your stenographers, you got that. You can be a stenographer. Now, since we have something of an in-house expert on our podcast today.
Yeah, special guest,
driftglass, former programmer.
Yeah.
We're going to talk for a minute about Musk's big plan to replace the COBOL code that runs the Social Security payment system with, something cool, whatever. It'll have algorithms and AI and algorithms.
And robots. There'll be robots.
And Big Balls is really excited about it. And look, you and I have talked about this, I think, for a decade.
Yes.
About the crisis in COBOL and how there aren't any COBOL programmers out there to do things anymore.
That's right. Well, there are a few.
Maybe 10 years ago, they should have been thinking about whether they needed to upgrade some systems in the government.
Sure.
That were run on this very old software.
Absolutely.
Musk says he's going to do it in 6 months.
Sure. Absolutely.
I think you had managers who told you that you were going to get things done in 6 months, too.
Right. That's exactly, yes. I'll get to that in a few minutes.
This is from a former COBOL programmer named Tim Boudreau. Quote, "There is zero reason to ever do that. And to anyone managing such a project who's a grown-up, that's obvious. You don't fuck with things that work just to be one of the cool kids. Especially not when the thing that works is life or death. Yeah, COBOL is really long in the tooth, and a few people on Earth want to code in it. But they have a working system with decades invested in addressing bugs, rewriting stuff, especially things that are life and death, in a fit of pique, or because of an emotional reaction to the technology used, or because you want to use the toys all the cool kids used, is idiotic. It's immaturity on display to the world. Doing it with AI that's going to read the COBOL code and churn something out in another language. So now you have code no human has read, no human has written, and no human understands is simply insane. And the best software translators plus AI out there is going to get things wrong. Grievously wrong. And the odds of anyone figuring out what went wrong or where it went wrong before it leads to disaster are low. I feel like that teacher, crisscross applesauce is going to lead to disaster. Never mind tracing that back to the original code and figuring out what that was supposed to do, because you're going to have to ask the AI to find it. So Driftglass, talk to us.
Well, here's the thing. I was a COBOL programmer for many, many years. I started an insurance company in the South Loop. I started at CNA Insurance, got a really good education in COBOL, went on to another insurance company in Evanston, got fired there from consultants. They went on, the consultants basically ate the company and shit it out, and the company died. But I picked up an awful lot of information about COBOL, learning about COBOL, et cetera. And a lot of the programs I worked on had been compiled, no kidding, during the Kennedy administration. But the thing about COBOL is it's very reliable. I did a lot of maintenance stuff, which was, we need a small patch to do this, we need ages expanded for that, and you'd have to go through a lot of code and figure out what the person was doing, what programs it was calling, because there's a whole bunch of calls to other calls, to other calls, to other programs, and make a small change. And to make a small change, what you would do is you'd make a small change to the existing program, which works fine. The gentleman you cited before talked about parallel in engineering, which is you replace machines because parts wear out. But COBOL doesn't have any parts to wear out. It's code. It goes on forever. And so if you're going to change anything in an old program, you first have to treat it with respect, because you're dealing with sort of the accumulated work of 20 years worth of programmers adding stuff and patching stuff and doing workarounds and expanding things and dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. You make your change. You put the change in a test environment where it could work and hurt nothing. And then you run it and see what it does. And the first 5 or 6 times you do it, if it's any kind of change at all, there'll be a mistake. There'll be a glitch. And you trace where the mistake was and what happened and why it happened. And then you fix it. And then you try it with live data in a test environment and watch it blow up. And then you figure out why it blew up. And in that process, you fix one small thing that needed to be fixed in this mountain. It's like the English language. It's not Esperanto. It wasn't arrived at logically. It's an amalgam of dozens of different languages with a bunch of stuff that doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense, except it works inside the language. And we had a system at the insurance company that used COBOL. And I was working on a project at the very beginning of the World Wide Web. This was in the late 80s. And no one in their right mind was thinking, well, here's what we need to do. Let's gut this whole system and rewrite it in HTML or whatever it was. No. The system works. You don't fuck with the thing that works and when your money depends on it. What we did was we built a shell around it that was basically a website. And that website was what interacted with the outside world. And I guarantee you lots of companies have done that. Those fancy, shiny front ends you see are fancy, shiny front ends that make it easier for you, the user, to use the system. But behind the system, there's some old DOS program or COBOL program, this behemoth that's cranking stuff out. You don't mess with that without respecting it enormously. You don't fucking mess with it in 6 months. Now, we did have a project at that company where promises were made about replacing an integral, important client-server system that was in COBOL with a brand new shiny system, and we're going to do it in 6 months. And I talked to the user groups of the larger insurance companies, and they said, you're insane. It's going to take you 2 years. We've got 300 programmers. We're working on this thing. You're going to do it with 10 programmers in 6 months? You're out of your fucking mind. You won't even get the data corrected that you can test it with in the first 4 months. So 6 months go by. The project manager has been lying the whole time. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. She gets put aside by the vice president, who was named Susan. And Susan hires another person to come in and do the project. They interviewed lots of people for the project. The people who said it can't be done in 6 months were not hired. The one dizzy bitch who said, sure, I can do it in 6 months, she was hired. She was hired to keep a promise to Susan that Susan had made to her boss, Pat. And you know what? The system wasn't done in 6 months. So then they went looking for a scapegoat. And that's what's going to happen here. They're going to fuck this thing up colossally. They're going to find some scapegoat out there somewhere, and they're going to destroy them and blame it all on them. Now, last but not least, I also had this experience with the dashboard evaluation system that I worked on at the city of Chicago. They hired consultants this time who promised it would be fast and easy to do. I've been working on this thing for a year and a half. They hired consultants to come in to finish the project. Consultants sold them a shitload of money, a very expensive system. And about 3 months into it, the city figured out that these people were scamming them, and they left. The world is littered with bright, shiny promises made of quick and easy solutions to problems that either don't exist or are incredibly complex, and consultants getting a lot of money and disappearing. And thinking this through, I likened it to the coding equivalent of Bill Kristol promising that the Iraq war would be over in like 2 months.
45. Listen, I just heard whatever else you could say about this war, let me just make one point. George Bush is not fighting this like Vietnam. We don't need to refight the whole history of Vietnam.
Maybe. That's the danger of Saddam,
but it's not going to happen.
Let me take
it's
a
not
call
going to happen.
From
this is going to be a 2-month war, not a
Park Hill.
year
It's
war.
going to be 2 months,
ahead,
not
please.
6 months.
And that is the end of my COBOL lesson for today.
Okay. Driftglass, let's do a news roundup. We start with breaking news. The Washington Post reports that members of President Donald Trump's National Security Council, including White House National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, have conducted government business over personal Gmail accounts.
Oh, God.
According to documents reviewed by the Washington Post and interviews with 3 U.S. officials. I guess Caroline Leavitt's declaration yesterday that the Signalgate case is closed is slightly premature.
By the way, hats off to all you people out there who kept the Signalgate story where it should be, on the front page and on people's lips for a week now, for more than a week now.
Which is hard lifting.
It's hard lifting
when Donald Trump is distracting everybody all the time.
And which is what, third term. Go look at the shiny third term thing I'm doing. But I'm hoping this is sort of like, and I like the guy personally, but he did screw the country up forever. Gerald Ford tripping,
Yeah.
Once you've established that he falls, suddenly everybody's looking for him to fall, and then Chevy Chase is doing him on television, and then his career's over.
Well, and that's when Caroline Leavitt said that yesterday, like, this case is closed.
Yeah.
Close the door on this. Don't ever ask me about this again. It's over.
Why do you hate America? Why do you hate our soldiers?
I looked at my TV with her on it, and I just said, You're behaving like these folks are never going to make another mistake. Are you kidding me?
Well, and
this is the one thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, she's doing what they did to Durbin back when.
Yeah,
why are you on the side of gang members? Do you want gang members? Are you in favor of gang members killing Americans? Why do you want dead Americans? And it's the same kind of absolute, all the time, rabid dog attack of anyone who questions anything. And
yeah,
it's been going on for decades.
And I will say, I know you're not going to like me for this, Driftglass, but Rick Wilson
all the time.
Is right about one thing. He is right that this entire national security apparatus at the White House this term is a bunch of cosplayers.
Oh, yeah. No,
they do not know what they're doing. That is making us less safe.
That does not require the deep insight of a Rick Wilson.
No, it doesn't. But he requires, said the word.
Yeah, no, I that's fine. If people who recognize the obvious truth that's staring them in the face and say it out loud, good for them. I would like to hear them say, and this shit all started with Newt Gingrich, and it all started with Rush Limbaugh, and liberals have been right all along.
Yep. And you should listen. He should say you should listen to the Professional Left podcast. Yeah. I would like Rick Wilson to say that. I'm not going to go on any more podcasts because I'm too busy listening to the Professional Left podcast, who have been right since 2010.
You know what? Actually, since 2005.
2005. Yeah,
20 years, baby.
You've been right since 2005.
And you've been right since 2004, baby.
2004. Yes.
So, well, does he do cameos? Is he that broke? He'll do cameos.
I don't know. We should find out who we can get in the Never Trump side to wish you a happy blogiversary.
No, to say liberals have been right all along. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. That's what I wanted to say.
I think you can write the script on Cameo.
Yeah.
But it'll probably cost you. Some of those Never Trumpers, I'm sure, are in the $750 to $1,500 Cameo range.
All right, time for a fundraiser. How much will it cost? How much will it cost to pay Michael Steele to say, you know what, Driftglass, the liberals have been right all along, and I've been a fool. How much will that cost? How much will that cost? I got a birthday coming up. By the way, it'll be my moving over to Medicare birthday. So
65 in October.
Let's go, people.
Yeah,
let's go.
I have a ways to go, but Driftglass is 65 in October.
I don't feel a day over 64, Blue Gal, which is kind of remarkable.
Me, but yeah.
All right, next news item. Enough lathering, enough fun in these dark times from Fox News host Jesse Waters. Being friendly to the world is what got us in this mess. Jesus, what a scumbag. We don't need friends. If we have to burn down a few bridges with Denmark to take Greenland, I want to see you in the front.
I got great news for Jesse Waters.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't have any friends.
Yeah, so you're already there, Jesse. Way to go. He continues, we're big boys. We dropped an A-bomb on Japan, and now they're our top ally. Well, I think in the last couple of weeks, they've been backing away from us, number one. Number two, following that logic, if we nuke Fox News, they'll be our ally within a few years. I like this. I like the way you're thinking there, Jesse.
Yeah,
I like the way you're thinking.
All right. Hey, from CBS, in case you were starting to feel safe, don't.
Yeah.
The entire staff of the federal government's Office of Infectious Disease and HIV/AIDS Policy is expected to be laid off. Multiple federal health officials told CBS News Friday the moves are part of a broader restructuring plan ordered by RFK Jr.'s brainworm. No, I'm sorry, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that involves cutting 20,000 HHS positions.
This is from the Huffington Post. Trump pulls research funding to protect pregnant women from domestic violence. God, there's no bottom to these people. Citing DEI homicide by an abusive partner.
DEI. No, he cited DEI as the reason.
DEI. I apologize. Cited DEI, period. Homicide by an abusive partner is the leading cause of death for pregnant women in the United States. Sorry for screwing that up.
The leading cause of death for pregnant women is not pregnancy complications, it's being killed by your partner. From Oliver Willis, Trump's disastrous trade war is killing U.S. tourism. According to a recently released report, the tourism industry is about to take a hit as travel from Canada to the United States is projected to experience a significant drop thanks to President Donald Trump's tariffs and other policies.
You know what kind of tourism is going to go way up? The kind predicted, I think it was in a story called Vintage Season, and there was a TV movie, I forget the title of it, Disaster Tourism.
Oh,
people who come from the future to watch things blow up, you know?
Yes.
And then, so start renting out. If you start seeing strangers showing up in your neighborhood asking to rent your house for like a week, get the hell out of that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is from the Times of India. Hundreds of international students in the United States are getting an email from the U.S. State Department of State, asking them to self-deport owing to campus activism. Immigration attorneys contacted by Times of India affirmed this development and added, a few Indian students may also be at the receiving end of such emails for something as innocuous as sharing a social media post. Hey, Harry, Sisson, this is cancel culture. This is what cancel culture looks like.
Yes, right. From Greg Sargent, Trump is privately warning CEOs of automakers, don't hike prices when tariffs hit. This blows up Trump's lies about the tariffs because it shows he knows they'll push up costs in the United States and knows other countries don't pay them. He's calling them before the tariffs go into effect and threatening them like a mob boss.
Here's what you do. You don't raise no prices and nobody gets hurt, you know? Maybe you want to stay in business of the year. This is from the New York Times. Thus far, the review of the USS Nimitz Library's holdings, that's American nuclear ship USS Nimitz, holding has identified 900 books that may run afoul of the defense secretary's verbal order. According to a second defense official, they include the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., Einstein on Race and Racism, and the biography of Jackie Robinson, notorious works of subversion all.
From MSNBC, Trump's attack on the Smithsonian is bad. His reason is even worse. The threat to museums such as the National Museum of African American History and Culture is real. Restoring truth and sanity to American history, a frightening executive order from President Donald Trump's White House Thursday, takes aim at the Smithsonian and threatens to pull federal funding for content that promotes divisive, race-centered ideology. But even more sinister is the administration's rejection of race as a social construct, which is nothing short of an expression of a belief in racial purity and white supremacy.
From the Chicago Sun-Times, they were all fired in the name of efficiency based on a lie. Now the VA is paying them not to work. Oh, isn't that nice? At the Level Federal Health Care Center in North Chicago, 18 VA workers were fired by DOGE. Many of them have received exemplary performance reviews, but they all got the same email saying that, quote, based on your performance, their work was not, quote, in the public interest. Later, they were put on administrative leave with pay. Yeah. Yeah.
There's some efficiency for you.
Yeah. And this is, I love this one from the Alt National Park Service, which is an excellent source. And whoever's behind that, top notch. Sometimes you have to just ask why. The Senate voted to strike down a rule capping most bank overdraft fees at $5, a measure introduced by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that was expected to save Americans, poor Americans, ordinary Americans, billions of dollars each year.
And our hero of the day, by the way, those senators, we need to see which ones own individual bank stocks. That's why. And our hero of the day is Brenna Tout-Frey, former attorney at the law firm of Skadden Arps. Subject, Skadden resignation. Today, the executive partner of my former firm sent us all an update that attempted to convince some of the best minds in the legal profession that he did us a solid by capitulating to the Trump administration's demands for fealty and protection money. Fellow Skadden attorneys, if you agree with Jeremy London's position that the firm should not engage in illegal DEI discrimination, should devote prestigious Skadden fellows to the Trump administration's pet projects, and should help politically disenfranchised groups who have not historically received legal representation from major national law firms, taking into account the robust pro bono work that major national law firms already do, then by all means, continue working here. I think she meant help stop politically disenfranchised groups getting a legal representation. Okay.
Well, I think
by all means, continue.
I think she might have meant that ironically, the disenfranchised groups are MAGA people and J6 people. And the other, poor oppressed white people who just can't get a break.
Who just can't get a lawyer. Right.
Right.
Then by all means, continue working here. But if that email struck you as a craven attempt to sacrifice the rule of law for self-preservation, I hope you do some soul-searching over the weekend and join me in sending a message that this is unacceptable in whatever way you can. As one of my more eloquent former colleagues put it, Do not pretend that what is happening is normal or excusable. It isn't. There is only one acceptable response from attorneys to the Trump administration's demands. The rule of law matters. As an attorney, if my employer cannot stand up for the rule of law, then I cannot ethically continue to work for them. And she quit.
And she quit. And she quit.
And
publicly.
These lawyers in these white shoe law firms in D.C. can get a job someplace else. Walk the fuck out. And have a nice day.
Yeah.
Feel free to write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go. Postal unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
Don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines, as if you could. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. And I could use one right now, Blue Gal, because we're doing this kind of late on a Tuesday.
We're recording this at 8:30 at night. Yes.
Yeah. And I know that the Wisconsin stuff and Florida stuff are coming in. We just haven't seen it yet because we've been focusing on this. But
I actually saw it. Both Republicans won in Florida. The Matt Gaetz district is just so gerrymandered. That was unreachable. However, the other district, the Republican won by 30 points in 2024. The Republican won by 10 points tonight.
Ooh.
10 or less.
That's got to hurt.
It's a definite slide in the wrong direction for the GOP. I have not heard what's going on in Wisconsin.
Okay. Well, we'll get Middlechild to give us a on-the-ground report.
Yeah, she's up there now. So.
And I believe tomorrow I'll be on the Brad Friedman show with Bigby and Desi, so I got to get some beauty sleep.
They begged you to come on, I know.
I got to get my beauty sleep, and so I'm sure we'll be talking about that tomorrow. And then Thursday, I'm sure we'll be talking about whatever happened, unless it's irrelevant or a rounding error, in which case
I'll make sure that a link to that show gets put up on our Patreon page. Everything on our Patreon page is open to everybody. Patreon.com/ProLeftPod. So there's no paywall there. Just you can go over and pick up links of where we are. And we will be on Bob Cesca next week.
That's right.
The 9th of May.
Oh, and if any of you are going to be in Chicago Friday or Saturday, I plan to be up there for a brief trip. And, if you're around and you don't want to throw, a drink in my face, let me know. Maybe
I will be in Chicago too, but I will be up to my eyebrows in yarn.
You'll be busy.
Very
Absolutely.
busy with yarn. I'm going to a yarn thing. So
whatever shall I do back in Chicago with nothing to do for 2 days in a row, except join my wife and courier you around, escort you around here and there.
You are my chauffeur, but
chauffeur. Anyway.
Saturday I'm going to be up to my eyebrows in yarn from 9 a.m. until the wee hours at the Cash Bar.
I'm thinking I might go up to a couple of old haunts and see if I can still sucker college students into giving me their money playing pool. Yeah. So I might have lost a step, but I'll do it. I'll reenact the Color of Money tour through Chicago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You'll have to take your phone and take pictures too.
Well, at least one of those places that I used to shoot pool was actually a place where they shot part of the movie. So
cool.
I feel, it was called the Ginger Man. And yes, I shot many, many, many nights of pool there with my friend John. Anyway, back to our prepared remarks. This is not charity. Despite the fact that I might come home flush with college student money, it doesn't matter because this is not charity. This is our job. And if you can spare $5 a month or more, please spare $5 a month or more at patreon.com/ProLeftPod. Please also share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast or even like it just enough, please get someone else to listen to, and thank you so much for doing that.
And driftglass.blogspot.com is where you can make a gesture to support this wonderful writer that I'm married to.
Oh, thank you.
He really deserves it. He really deserves your support and your thank you for being there for 20 years.
Jesus, what am I supposed to say to that? I mean...
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, since you asked, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties say they are very, very sorry for hacking Pete Hegseth's Gmail. They just wanted his sardine daiquiri recipe.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.